Hey everybody, Derek Prall with SafeHome.org here. Today we're going to be looking at one of the biggest names in the game, NordVPN. They've got a really great reputation online and a long list of features. But as with any well-known service, I'm always a little bit skeptical. How much of their popularity is based on real-world functionality, and how much is just name recognition and hype? Well, keep watching and you'll find out. So NordVPN has been around for about a decade, and they've made quite a name for themselves during that time. Honestly, if you're even remotely familiar with VPNs, you've probably already heard of them. We want to unpack what's really going on with this service, but before we get going, I want to run you through what we're going to be looking at today. First, we're going to be looking at NordVPN's pros and cons. Then I'm going to show you how they function on a day-to-day basis, and we're going to talk about their performance. We're going to take a look at some of their more advanced features, and we're going to wrap up with how they look on mobile. Sound good? So starting off with the pros, NordVPN's list of features is extensive. They offer one of the most comprehensive lists of protections out there, and some functionality that's really unique. They're also super fast and super secure. In our tests, NordVPN actually made my connectivity better. That was a first for me. I also didn't detect any leaks or security flaws using different tools and leak detection techniques. Finally, they offer enhanced security options for folks whose safety might depend on it. We're not talking about your average Joe that wants to watch Canadian Netflix. We're talking about like journalists in North Korea level security. Now for the not so gritty. I thought the setup process might be a little bit confusing for some users, particularly if you're establishing your account on a Mac. You can read about my personal experience in our in-depth review of NordVPN linked below the video. And although there were dedicated P2P servers we could connect to, there weren't any optimizations for streaming. Now, this isn't necessarily a deal breaker, but it's something you want to be aware of. I also had some connectivity issues using certain protocols through certain offshore servers. Their use the best protocol for this server option seemed a little bit faulty for me. All right, so now that you have a good idea of what it is we're looking at, it's time to jump into the day-to-day use of NordVPN. So here's what NordVPN looks like once you have everything all set up. And I've got to say, this is one of the coolest interfaces I've seen so far in a VPN. And beyond just looking rad, it's functional too. You can click and drag around the map to select which country you'd like to connect through. That's pretty cool. On the left here, you have a complete list of servers that you have access to, and down at the bottom, you're going to see your specialty servers. We're going to be getting into that in just a little bit. So let's go ahead and connect. And once that's done, we're using the VPN, we're protected. Simple as that. But let's talk about these presets over here for a second. As you can see, you have 3 right off the bat. Now you can create your own presets with certain protocols and certain parameters and certain servers, but that's a little bit beyond the scope of just day-to-day use. For most people, these are going to be just fine. So as you likely know, when you're using a VPN, you can sometimes experience some pretty significant slowdowns, particularly if you're using servers in foreign countries. This makes sense. If you're bouncing your traffic halfway across the world, your YouTube video might load a little bit slower. Now, there are nearly an unlimited number of combinations and permutations of how you can configure your VPN and route through any number of servers, but when optimized for speed, Nord outperformed pretty much everything I've experienced so far. At the time I performed this test, without running Nord, my download speeds were right at 160 megs per second, and my upload speeds were right at 125. When I switched Nord on, though, my download speed took a bit of a ding, down to 143, but my upload speeds actually increased significantly, up to almost 190. This is the first time that my VPN actually outperformed my ISP. Now, I can't say that you're going to experience the same thing. Your speeds are contingent on a ton of factors, but it's worth pointing out that Nord's connectivity allows for this. All right, so that takes care of Nord's everyday use and their pretty admirable performance. But let's talk a little bit about their advanced features, specifically their enhanced security functions. So here are the 4 advanced features I want to point out today. The first is the dedicated IP address. A dedicated IP address is only used by you, and it always comes from the same virtual location. There are a few benefits to using one of these. First of all, it makes browsing a lot more seamless. Anyone who uses a VPN often has probably dealt with their fair share of CAPTCHAs and other tools that make sure you're not bot traffic. Dedicated IP addresses make those instances far less frequent. They're also far less likely to be picked up by network restrictions looking for VPN protocol traffic, and they make telecommunication services, like everyone's favorite right now, Zoom calls, a lot more stable. Next on the list is the double VPN. Now, this is exactly what it sounds like. Your traffic is routed through 2 VPN servers instead of 1, essentially encrypting it twice. Since the second server in the series only knows about the traffic in relation to the first server, it means that there's no effective way to trace you at all. Like I said, you're probably not going to need to use this functionality all that often, but if your physical safety depends on a secure and anonymous internet connection, you're going to want to use this. Then we have obfuscated servers. Obfuscated. That's a hard word to say. Obfuscated servers. Some countries like China, Russia, and Turkey have really tight restrictions on internet traffic, and your standard run-of-the-mill VPNs aren't going to work there. But if you're using something like server obfuscation, they will. This works in one of 2 ways. They're either going to scramble what you have going on so much that it hides any identifying metadata, or additional layers of encryption are going to be employed. Either way, the results are the same. The firewall isn't going to be able to detect that you're using a VPN, and your traffic is just going to breeze through. And finally, we've got good old P2P file sharing optimization. Now, P2P file sharing is a bit of a legal gray area, but for folks that want to share media in this way safely, you're going to want to use a VPN. Here, Nord has optimized several servers for this exact purpose, and you can make sure that you're routed through countries that don't really go after torrenters. So that's about that for Nord's advanced features. As you can see, they really take privacy and security seriously, and they go far beyond your typical protections. This is really great for folks who need an additional layer of security or who might get in serious trouble for trying to access the free and open internet. One last thing before we wrap up, though. I wanted to talk really quick about NordVPN on mobile. It's really important to select a VPN with a strong mobile presence. You're far more likely to run into hackers and other bad actors when you're out and about and connecting to, random networks where you don't know who you're actually sharing it with. The good news is NordVPN has obviously taken a lot of time designing their app. The UI is pretty much the same as the desktop version, but I wanted to point out that you have access to the same features and functions on your phone that you do on your computer. That's pretty rare. A lot of times these apps are really watered down and their functionality is pretty limited. Nord did a great job here making sure that theirs is robust. So that's that. Like I said, NordVPN is one of the biggest names in the industry for a reason. The sophistication of their security posture is truly impressive, but they're still user-friendly enough to be approachable for most folks. You're not going to get spoon-fed here, but trust me, you're not going to get overwhelmed. If you're interested in learning more about NordVPN, be sure to head over to safehome.org and read my in-depth review. Or if you're interested in learning more about VPNs in general, we've got some really great resources over there for you as well. If you have any specific questions, reach out to me in the comments. And if you'd like to see me review a specific VPN in the future, let me know there. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Stay safe out there.